Hello, I'm Natalie Becker. Welcome to It's Africa's Time. Infrastructure development is a key driver for progress across Africa and a critical enabler for productivity and sustainable economic growth. Today, we feature examples of private sector investments in infrastructure in Liberia, Mozambique and Malawi, and interview UNDP representatives in each of these countries. We start in Liberia, where AECOM is focused on the country's education infrastructure and is working together with government, the World Bank and NGO Plan International to build 67 schools by 2015.
The wars in Liberia destroyed and arrested social development to the extent that the infrastructure was destroyed, the schools were destroyed, and so were the hospitals. People were displaced. A lot of people left the country as refugees. A lot of professionals in Liberia went to other countries. In the meantime, there was no more services provided by the central government in terms of health, in terms of education. The current development strategy of Liberia is the agenda for transformation. All the major partners in Liberia, the World Bank, the IMF, the African Development Bank, and the United Nations, have aligned their development strategies to support that. The priority has been to try and rebuild institutions that were destroyed by the war. And in the last 10 years, I think Liberia has made very good progress in this respect. I think the main challenges to education remain accessibility. You need additional schools. You need to rehabilitate schools that were destroyed during the Civil War. And you need to provide properly trained teachers.
The Civil War in Liberia effectively removed children from formal education. In many cases, it turned them into child soldiers. And this has meant that an entire generation of young people have missed education during the formative years of their life. In many cases, they're now parents themselves.
I see young people today that lack the required skill set, that moral compass is absolutely skewed, that have no tools for survival in the 21st century.
The enrollment level dropped, and many families had to fend food, and kids started to become street peddlers in order to get some bread to eat. And teachers left the country, sought refuge in neighboring countries. School infrastructures were destroyed as a result of shelling. Everything became centralized, with over half of the population living in Monrovia. Now, what happened was that you left schools in the rural areas without teachers. You see a high school student becoming a teacher or a principal in those rural communities, which shifted the paradigm in education in Liberia.
The GPE, the Global Partnership for Education, helps GPE country members develop and implement their education sector plans. That includes infrastructure and also basic education services.
Where the buildings that the people are currently being educated in, like what we've seen today, are in dire need of maintenance and refurbishment. So prior to this program, the conditions were very tough for both scholars and tutors.
Our role within the partnership programme is to act as advisors to the Ministry of Education, working alongside their staff and other advisors that they have as well, who are looking specifically at school grants, textbooks and curriculum, and the training of teachers. The Ministry are also developing a community-driven approach to school buildings in their more remote areas, and we're assisting them with how this can be set up as well.
We look to empower the local people through thought leadership and make sure that the business grows indigenously, so we don't have to bring in expats to do the projects all the time. And with that, once the project has been completed, the people that remain in country are fully empowered with the tasks that they have to do to make sure that there's a sustainability in education moving forward.
Locally, we've got one permanent project manager and 4 construction managers They're the only expat staff that we have on this project. The rest of our staff are locally employed, and our aim is very much that we will leave a legacy when this project is complete. Liberia now has a desperate need of some 1,500 schools. At 67 schools over 40 sites, it's a relatively small pilot study in the scheme of things, but we're also developing a training program that will encompass all aspects of procurement and delivery.
The project is not a standalone project. It does not work in isolation of the government agenda. It's in conformity with the revised education law of 2011. So in every sector of the project, we are working directly with the ministry. We are working with them, building their capacity to be able to continue this process even after the project is over. The law now says that we have basic education from grade 1 to 9 and then secondary education from grade 10 to 12. Basic education is free and compulsory. There are other barriers, there are other challenges to enrollment to ensure that all children, irrespective of where they come from, achieve basic primary education by 2015. Our goal is not just to increase access, but also improve on retention and completion at the end of the day.
When you couple the poor infrastructure along with the natural environment where the rainy season lasts for 6 months of a year, you look at receiving over 5 meters of rainfall during that period, and in extreme cases you can get over 1 meter of rainfall in a day, then you end up with some extremely challenging conditions, and getting personnel and materials to site is something that we've got to work very, very closely with contractors and suppliers. Sustainability in the developing world is more about creating facilities that the local communities can maintain themselves. So in this case, we've looked very much at what the raw materials are that the local communities have got, and even though we're building to a standard design, we're making sure that the local communities are able to maintain what it is that we've built.
People were raped, whether their homes were vandalized, whether their families were killed, whether they stood and watched their brother being killed. Those were issues that created so much trauma for kids, whoever they are. And I am of the personal conviction that with education, we can begin to learn some basic things about how we healed from those issues and how we learn not to repeat the mistakes that we made that led us to the severe conflict.
International companies can make a positive and sustainable contribution to the development of Liberia by holding up to their moral, social, corporate responsibilities, by not going the shortcuts, by not bribing people, by not putting profits first, but people first.
Africa's natural and social economic potential is huge, and we're leaving no legacy for the people of Africa, where what we're trying to endorse and to fulfill is to create a platform or an environment where our local people get educated, so the funds that are created out of the natural resources can be powered back into the country and therefore create knowledge and wealth within the country.
With the path we are on with development and with the very, 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 very adequate and sound leadership we have in Liberia under the leadership of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, we think that we are on the right trajectory. And in the next 10 years, this small nation are going to beam out and shine very, very bright, if possible, the brightest in Africa.
In our next feature, we meet Brazilian mining giant VALE and learn about the company's inclusive business strategies around mining and infrastructure in Mozambique.
The African continent today has tremendous opportunities for growth and development, but at the same time there are a lot of challenges in the way. And one of the things that we're really focusing on in terms of challenges is how to include more people, more citizens of the continent in the employment, growth and development to benefit everyone. There's a huge challenge on infrastructure, not just big infrastructure, but secondary infrastructure, medium-sized roads so farmers can get things to market, all of that to help food security and productivity over time. Mozambique had a 16-year, very, very severe civil war that ended only in 1992. So it's a very young country in terms of development. That means that many, many of the things that take time to build up in the fabric of development of a country, the human capital, the infrastructure, the investment, healthcare systems, all of that has really only had a stable platform for the last 20 years. And in those last 20 years, the country has worked very hard on stabilizing a peaceful, constructive, stable platform for development.
The Moatize coal field is one of the largest untapped coal deposits anywhere in the world. It has very high quality metallurgical coal. Our aim is to be producing 22 million tons of coal by 2018, but for that we will depend largely on large-scale logistics system.
For mining operation, it's necessary the investment in logistics, in railroads and ports operation, and considering the limitations mainly at the port of Beira, we have looked for a new solution, definitive solution, which is the Nacala corridor. This corridor is not going to be used only to transport coal, so it's not exclusive for Vale. Considering the connectivity it has to other countries in the region, it's going to be a very important platform for the economic development.
We can see by ourselves what is happening in TET. Many Mozambicans are getting jobs, not only on mining site, but in other sectors. The infrastructures are being developed. Today it's possible to travel by railroad from Beira to TET. We are having many companies that are being established in that province. And I think that it's because of this huge investment made by Vale.
On the operation side, we have now 2,300 people working at the mine directly. And we have a $2 billion expansion project going on in Moatize to double capacity of the mine. On the expansion project alone, we have 3,000 people working. And if you look at the multiplying effect of mining, for every job that we generate at the mine, we generate 8 to 10 jobs in town. 90% of our workforce is composed by Mozambicans. And that generates a very positive circle of development. We are in Mozambique for the long run. We are investing $6 billion in hardcore assets. So it's not something that you pick from here and take to another country. And because it's high-tech, we invest a lot in people, we invest a lot in training.
Dado que em 2012 nós realizamos o primeiro curso de pós-graduação em Engenharia Ferroviária em Moçambique, que foi conduzido por UNDP, e a VALE e a CFM como instituições que proviam dos estudantes para serem formados. O envolvimento da VALE permitiu que houvesse ganho em termos de treinamento de alguns docentes locais. O MER ter um módulo muito importante para um país como Moçambique, que é o módulo de prevenção e investigação de acidentes. Este foi para nós grande ganho nesse projeto.
Vale's mission is to transform natural resources into economic development. There is no operation if we don't have sustainable development for people and for the environment.
After a 5-year study supported by government, in 2009, Vale relocated the population from their mining concessions into 2 resettlement areas, one urban, one rural. All their belongings, including ancestors' graves, for example, were also resettled.
After the coming of this company, Vale, upon coming here at Gateme, we now see some other changes just because we see some other young people going to school. We see like water. There is a boreholes at first.
Agora aqui, só que algumas pessoas foram atribuídos alguns projetos. Outros estão na criação dos frangos, outros estão na criação de bois e outros praticam agricultura. Na minha parte, estou me sentir bem como recebi uma fêmea e 2 machos. A fêmea é para criação. Depois os 2 machos é para ajudar-me na machamba.
TET was really very affected by the war, and it's far away from the south of Mozambique. It's far away from the more developed areas of the country. In economical terms, it was almost a forgotten land. And now TET province and Moatize, it has the chance and the opportunity to bring back development, growth, improving living standards and conditions of the population.
And of course, development brings also a lot of pressures, a lot of needs. We contributed to improve the capacity of the public service in terms of schools, health centers. It's also our commitment to the Millennium Development Goals.
VALE has invested $100 million in social infrastructure and services in the Moatis region. Infrastructure includes sanitation, housing, construction, and refurbishment of schools, sports, and healthcare centers. The Moatis Night Clinic, built in association with USAID, is one such investment.
O objetivo principalmente da própria clínica é de diminuir o índice de HIV e de DTS. A maioria das pessoas que vêm aqui ser assistidos são comerciantes de sexo. Aqui estamos com um dado um pouco inferior em relação às unidades sanitárias, porque eles convidam o próprio parceiro para virem fazer tratamento ao mesmo tempo.
Social services include training in farming techniques and finance, and focus on addressing the needs of women and children in particular.
And we think that through sports, we can mobilize the community and strengthen individuals. And in this center, we want to develop other ludic and social activities linked to health, education, and culture.
It's not enough that you have very high island of excellence inside the mine if you have a sea of poverty outside the mine. And that's our philosophy. Our license to operate is much more than a license given by the government. It's actually given by society.
I'm very optimistic with the future of Mozambique, not only because of our presence. We believe that mining with oil and gas and associated with agriculture and tourism, I believe that the future of Mozambique is brilliant.
For today's final feature, we travel with MOTA-ENGIL to southern Malawi and Likoma Island to observe how investment in this country's infrastructural assets is contributing to its socio-economic growth and development.
We started as a pure construction company, and today we do mining. We have also logistics. We have the whole operation of the ports in the lake.
Main city from here, it's about 100 kilometers say from our camp. Previously, it had to take people 3-4 hours to make it to the nearest town, Blantyre.
The Bangula Road was a project financed by EU and Malawi government. It is an extremely important road because it is a north-south corridor.
Here in this area, we produce a lot of livestock, which has to be transported to urban areas like Blantyre. And having no good infrastructure makes life very challenging. Sometimes transporters would even refuse to come to an area where the road is going to wreck their cars. Yeah. It's also a road that will lead us to the border south to Mozambique. In the long run, it is going to link us to the sea. So Malawi being landlocked, I think it's the beginning of the opening.
So as a main road, it is a link to this area from other districts. There are a lot of companies that are coming to open their factories, like government programs like education, health sector, agriculture will be speeded up. It will be very easy again for everybody who want to do some business in the Shire Valley to make it because of the accessibility of the roads.
So when we got involved in the redesign issues, we started all the survey works from the beginning. This section is going full reconstruction because the level of deterioration was just high.
One of the biggest production of cattle in the country. You have a huge production of sugar, and the sugar is one of the biggest contributors on the GDP. And you have also a lot of production of wheat, maize, and cotton. So by improving the road condition, the transportation became cheaper, and these people, they gain immediately some competitiveness on the market. And of course, the country could use those resources in order to take advantage of Nsanje port.
The people of Ngabu, Chikwawa, Nsanje, I think the number one thing they could ask for was the road. You need a road for people now to start thinking, now we must move forward.
One day I was supervising the roads and one gentleman on a bicycle stopped right next to me. Sir, I'm coming to say thank you to you, sir, because my wife was pregnant and we managed to get her to a hospital and I can save my wife and my son. Building lots of roads on these locations, we contribute directly, indirectly for the alleviation of poverty. The people benefit immediately from a fast access for goods and people transport. People can access to hospitals, to health, and can do it fast.
As part of their corporate social investment program, MOTA-ENGIL donated a much-needed ambulance to Bait-Cure International Hospital in Blantyre.
This used to be, and until recently, was the largest clubfoot treatment program in the world, with over 5,500 children in treatment. Malawi is making good progress towards meeting a number of the Millennium Development Goals, but orthopedics, which is our main focus, doesn't feature in the Millennium Development Goals. Orthopedics is really the hidden part of the iceberg in sub-Saharan Africa when it comes to medical treatment. Malawi is a less developed country. Nearly half the children here at the age of 5 are stunted. They have poor nutrition and they have very poor access to healthcare. So if you have a child in Malawi born with a physical disability, the opportunity for them to have that physical disability corrected, perhaps through a very minor surgical procedure, is very slim. And that's who we have at our heart.
The airport has brought very good development to this island. Number one, it has added beauty to it. Number two, it has sustained tourism. The airport has helped to recruit some young men and women here at the airport. This airport is being used by mainly tourists who also help to sustain their employment where they are employed. This airport has helped us a lot in medical emergencies, especially when we have someone who is critically ill. We need to airlift him to Lilongwe or to Mzuzu.
There was a runway there, very poor runway. There was a number of accidents happened in 2009. In AECOM Island, you have 10,000 people. If someone has to be rescued with urgency, or the airport didn't have the capacity to land an ambulance aircraft, for instance.
Indirectly, of course, there is also Kaimawa, which is also employing local citizens. It is doing very, very well as a result of increase in customers. And there are also people who are supplying supplies to Kaimawa. So in essence, the airport has really contributed to our business locally.
By having that kind of runway there, that has upgraded the safety and the quality of the service of Kaimawa. Malawi is very central, it's a platform. From here you can go into Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania. So the time of changing mindsets has come, and people have to believe.
Malawi is among a group of low human development countries on the Human Development Index. Food insecurity is a cyclical problem which has been with Malawi for a long time. While Malawi's agricultural production saw a quite remarkable increase, there hasn't been a similar sustained improvement in nutrition levels. Some of these reasons is because the agriculture is still by and large dependent on rain, so too little irrigation. It's also a lot of monocrops and small-scale agriculture. So there's a need for diversification of the agricultural sector, for more climate-resilient crops, and for higher value addition, so that the rural population would be productively engaged throughout the year and not only during harvest season.
Investment in infrastructure accounts for a significant improvement in economic growth in a number of countries across Africa, and as we've seen in today's examples, holds the potential to achieve even more. Thank you to all our contributors for their insights on today's show. Please join us next month on Tuesday the 13th of August as we bring you news stories of inclusive business across the continent. But for now, thanks for watching.